Hello and welcome back to the Ninja Tune podcast. My name is Azariah and in this episode I'll be sitting down with London-based band PVA to chat about their newly released album, Blush. We'll hear some comical moments from their performance on Jools Holland, the formation of the band, and some of the artists that are inspiring them at the moment. Hello guys, how are you? PVA in the building.
Hello.
Good.
We've finally entered the autumn season and it seems like you guys have had quite a busy summer.
Yeah, very, very busy, but lots of fun travels.
Yeah, lots of festivals in Europe, which has been really fun. Travelled to loads of new places.
Yeah, so what's the highlight? What would be the highlight of your summer?
We spent 4 days on the island of Corsica, just south
In the
of
south of
France.
France.
And we were playing a festival on the last day, but we went over a few days early to film a music video. And we were just driving around the island, kind of occasionally filming some shots, but also just sunbathing, and it was so warm.
so warm. And then
So nice.
on the last day there was a massive storm. Yeah, it was crazy. The whole island just it was insane. Then we went to go swimming, but all of the kind of locals were standing on the beach being yeah, you definitely shouldn't go swimming in the sea.
What? Why?
Because it's just been a massive storm, so all of the
Oh, so you might
waves
get sucked out.
and we swim out into this platform, and we're oh my god, this is so cool. Then all of a sudden this giant wave just comes and throws us off.
Yeah, I mean
Just
that
out of
that
nowhere.
was not a highlight because we genuinely nearly
Almost died,
drowned.
yeah.
I had to call my friends and be nearly died today.
I thought you were going to say or there was some sea monster or shark in there so you couldn't go in.
It was we were having such a nice time, then all of a sudden we were oh my goodness, we're so stupid. And we were just getting split, we're just going.
But I kind of got myself out of the sea, and I looked over, and there was a lady there, and she was just shaking her head,
You idiot.
Yeah, you British fools.
Same thing sort of happened to me when I was in South Africa, but it wasn't I was young at the time, and obviously South Africa's known for great white sharks, but
Right.
I just forgot. And also because South Africa's so hot, I thought the sea would be warm, and it was absolutely freezing. Obviously the perfect temperature for great whites to just thrive. And I was splashing around yeah, and my dad's what are you doing? It's get in. It's there's great white sharks in there, and I was oh my god,
Oh my, that's nightmare. That's nightmare fuel.
terrifying.
yeah, literally.
The
And
sea can be a dangerous place.
It's such a dangerous place. You've got to respect it.
You gotta
it's
respect it. Yeah.
it's like an iceberg, it's beautiful on the tip, but then there's all this there's this
Yep.
all this baggage beneath the waves.
Yeah, I have so many fever dreams about the bottom of the ocean.
Well,
Maybe we can get into that.
maybe you write a song about that. So you're releasing your debut album Blush this week. How does that feel?
It feels so exciting, but it's come around so quickly. When you announce an album, album campaign's 3-4 months long. You're oh, that's so much time. And you just blink and it's
gone.
a month away, and then you blink and it's a week away. But
Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah, it's we got our first review in today.
Yeah.
Oh, how was that?
Yeah, it was good.
5
It was
out of 5.
5 out of 5.
Yeah.
And it was really nice. It was from a very small. I don't actually know which magazine it was
Narc
from.
magazine.
Narc
Narc.
magazine. Yeah, I hadn't heard of the magazine before, but they were so lovely about it. So I was just,
Yeah, it was short but very sweet.
it was very sweet. So yeah, I'm kind of just, I think this week is this kind of stuff. It's people going to start saying what they think about it.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
we're
it's
gonna
always
start sort of-
frightening, isn't it?
Yeah, but
It's quite exciting though. It's interesting to see how people interpret the stuff that you make.
yeah, totally. And it's just also nice. I think it's an act of just letting go. If suddenly, when you actually finally let it out to people,
Yeah.
it doesn't become yours anymore, and that's quite
Yeah.
freeing, I think.
It has been birthed.
Well, we're going to get into Blush and the creation of the album a bit later on. But I want to hark back to sort of the beginning of your career and creative journey. Has making and playing music always been a part of each of you, or something that you all discovered at a certain age?
I think with me, I got into it a bit later on in life. I always really liked music, but I think I would never be very good at committing to my music lessons as a kid. My mum would get me like trumpet lessons, and after 3 lessons I'd be like, I don't want to do it anymore, I'm so bored. But yeah, I've always really loved music, and I had this really lovely group of friends at secondary school who introduced me to going to gigs, and I just became absolutely obsessed, and we'd go to like 2 or 3 a week when we could. And yeah, and then just sort of started falling into making music, and I feel like it's been really nice in PVA because it's also been like such a big learning experience as well. I feel like I've developed as my production skills and my musicianship skills like on the job, and it's quite a fun way to kind of be learning as you're going and like improving as you're going, because yeah, it's, you know, you learn a new guitar part, or I learn how to do something on the guitar, and then I'm like, okay, I've got to do this next week on stage in front of 500 people.
Yeah, I've always been like interested in music, and my dad and my brother and my granddad were all like quite into music. Like my granddad was a drummer, just like, yeah, for fun. But I didn't really start getting into like making music. Well, yeah, I was like 12 or something when I first downloaded Fruity Loops and started like...
Fruity Loops, woo!
Yeah, I think my brother had come back from like a holiday in Spain or something, and he was like showing me like Avicii, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. It's like a 12-year-old just being like, what? And it's like, how do they make that music? And then just like finding Fruity Loops and just making like...
It's a classic. People still use
trance.
it now.
yeah.
It's such a funny name.
Avicii or Fruity Loops?
I mean, yeah.
I mean,
all of it.
But yeah, and then I kind of like stopped producing stuff for a while, and then started playing like in a band when I was like 16 or something, and then yeah, I kind of got back into production, and yeah, just kind of used YouTube and stuff to like teach me.
YouTube's a classic, I feel like, for our time.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like that's everything I learned, yeah. And still now, I think that's the kind of what TikTok has become as well.
Yeah, kind of like almost like
it's a search engine, really.
Life hack.
Yeah. So you guys recently played Jools Holland alongside some other great acts like Loyal Kana, The Big Moon, Marcus Mumford, and Burna Boy. That's quite the selection.
Yeah.
So tell me, what was that like?
It was a crazy experience. It was so surreal to see the set in real life, having like watched it as a show for such a long time. And yeah, it was such a production as well. The way like the crew and the cameras all like in perfect harmony and in sync to film in the round, and like everything's planned out. It was sort of it was so crazy to be involved in.
Really like well-oiled machine.
Yeah, you know, like been going for 30 years.
You'd hope so after all that time, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Imagine if you turned up as just a mess.
Yeah.
Nothing running to plan. You'd be like, what?
Yeah, no.
Not the BBC.
But it was actually amazing. It was so funny. We knew our cue was after Burna Boy's interview, and you know, standing there feeling quite nervous and like the adrenaline just flying through you, and then just Burna Boy was being so funny. He was talking about like having an orgy in the White House, and, like Buckingham Palace. And Jools was just being like, yeah. I mean, that
talking about
that
feeding
sounds
7-Up to his pet monkey.
His pet monkey who died.
Not because of 7-Up.
No, I didn't
sure. It was just sort of like you didn't want to kind of accuse him of killing this monkey.
You were just sort of nodding, like, what do you even say? I mean, what to any of that?
But it was actually amazing because I was just laughing so much, and then it was just like, I'm PVA, and you're just like sort of still giggling.
You're like, okay, we got to go now.
And you're like, okay, I guess we're playing now. And so that was actually such a great thing to have just beforehand.
He was like pumping you guys up.
Yeah.
Really good
like
energy.
Diffusing the
really.
kind of fear.
Yeah, it was really, really funny. But yeah, and we did a watch party for it on Saturday.
Yeah.
And it was so nice. We just had like all of our friends there, and everyone was like singing along. And yeah, had some Prosecco.
Yeah.
Prosecco,
Stayed up far too late.
That's my
Far too
favourite drink.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
I was just pouring prosecco in like people's pints and people's like, gin and tonics. I was just being like
What needs
prosecco for
it?
you, prosecco for you, spritz, spritz, spritz.
I love that. That is such a vibe. So, is it true, guys, that PVA was formed at a house party? Because if so, that's quite rock and roll of you.
Well, it was actually we decided to do PVA at our obviously at the time wasn't our manager, but it was actually our manager's
Our manager's
house party. I think for her birthday.
Was it her birthday?
Maybe it was her
I think
birthday.
I might have just been like
just a house party. But yeah, me and Josh had met a few times, and we were just kind of, as you do at a party, just like chatting away. And
you guys started to become friends a little bit.
yeah, we'd met a few times before, and I don't know, we'd both sort of, Josh was playing in a project at the time. I just finished playing in this project that we'd played like a few gigs, and then like our schedules didn't really work out. And yeah, we both were just saying we just really
Want to play more live
shows, and kind of want to find a band where that's like something that is like leading it, just like playing.
I had
playing
these
more.
really weird techno blues
And then
country songs.
Josh had the demo of Talks that he sent me, and I was like, yeah, let's do it.
that was a good one from those original demos. The rest of them were a bit crazy.
That's quite impressive, because I feel like, and you've probably both been there as well, when you're at a house party, you're always like, we should meet up, bro.
We should
definitely
hang out.
Like,
We should definitely start a band. Like, I'll call you tomorrow.
like
Shall we definitely?
Yeah, well, this is the text I sent to him the next day. Was I know that people always say this stuff at house parties, but I'd actually really like to play in a band. So
and that's impressive as well, because you're probably hungover, maybe.
Yeah.
And
No,
was like,
followed
I'm going
up.
to do this.
This is as words of encouragement. Always follow up on things that you say at 5 a.m. at a house party to someone.
Sonny says the most terrible things when he lays awake at night, and I'm singing to him and he screams in his sleep. Sonny says the most terrible things when he lays awake at night and wants feeding. He screams in his sleep. I hear you cry and I don't even try. I don't know why, I don't know why. I hear you cry and I don't even try. I don't know why, I don't know why. I'm a beast of man. Sonny says the most terrible things when he lays awake at night, and I'm singing to him and he screams in his sleep. Sonny babe, you're gonna be king, a ruler so thin, so king, they will scream on the streets. I hear you cry and I don't even try. I don't know why, I don't know why. I hear you cry and I don't even try. I don't know why, I don't know why. I'm a beast of man. I'm a beast of man. I'm a beast of a man. I'm a bad dad, a bad dad. I'm a beast of a man. I'm a bad dad, a bad dad. I wonder if you grow wings and fly away from me. I wonder if you grow wings and fly away. I hear you cry and I don't even try. I don't know why, I
So, the band formed fresh out of the house party UK. What was it like navigating the London music scene in the beginning? Like, tell us about the early beginnings of PVA.
I think we were just playing in like a lot of the south venues, like the Five Bells and Windmill were kind of the main spots that we played at for our first maybe 10 shows. The Amateur Mums we played at once. But yeah, I think it's
quite chaotic from our part, I would say.
Yeah, we'd be booked for, a lot of friends doing us favours and booking us at like 8 p.m. for the show at the Windmill, and then us turning up and just like
lots of technical difficulties,
blaring like out of time sequences and just shouting into microphones.
But see, people seem to enjoy it enough to want to book us. I remember one show that we played, and we used to have this like a mini MIDI keyboard, so like the keys were like tiny. And we were playing at the Windmill, and it we were just about to play, and this was when Ella was like playing like the laptop through the MIDI, and it like broke just before we started, and so you're like trying to like
play the songs on the keyboard,
on the laptop keyboard,
like being like, I was like, Josh, is W like
is that
like
E
is
or
that the
which
E
one's
flat
G?
or
And so for like half the set you're playing, and then like towards the end you're like this is just too insane. Like we need to just stop. And I was like, okay,
this is impossible. I'm so stressed. Yeah.
Oh,
So there was...
you had no time to like practice it. I think I might have written out like on small bits of paper like the letter, like the notes, and tried to like stick them onto the laptop, and you're just like, I don't think any of this is gonna really help.
So how did that gig go?
I mean,
it was right.
Luckily,
I think you pulled it off.
I think there were only about 20 people there, so luckily we didn't have many witnesses.
And they didn't
pressure.
know us anyway, so don't worry.
Exactly. But yeah, there were lots of moments like that, but I think that's the thing I really love about the South London music scene is there's like so much room for people coming and just like trying stuff, and it's not so, if our first few shows were maybe in a smaller town or a different scene in which, you're sort of playing in established venues and you just get like one sport gig and you're like so excited to get that. If it had gone like badly like that, maybe we just wouldn't, we've been quite discouraged. But, we were getting booked for like 2 or 3 shows every few weeks, playing to, very, very small rooms of people. But you just had like constant opportunity to develop and get better, and sort of like you'd have a moment like that and be like, let's make sure that never happens again.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's buy a keyboard that will work. That will work.
So was there sort of like a crossroads or an event that you can remember where you sort of crossed over from playing these small venues with not many people there to sort of being where you are now? Was there like an exciting moment where you were like, oh, we've always been like a legit band, but now we're like a legit band?
We supported audiobooks at Electroworks, and I remember that show being really, like, when we got that, we were really excited, and that was one of the first shows that we played with Louis that kind of, we felt like went quite well, and like we got the set together. I think it was probably the start of 2019 when we actually started kind of getting booked for booked for shows that weren't at the Windmill and the Five.
Like supports. Like we supported Dry Cleaning. They played the Lexington.
Yeah, and
Squid. We played a few shows with them.
Yeah, 2019 was a really nice year. I feel like we started.
I think more recently, Wide Awake, when we played there in 2020. Was that the first one or 2021?
2021.
Yeah, that was like on like the main stage, and there was like a few thousand people there, and I remember being like, "Whoa, we're a real band.
Whoa, we're a real band now."
So cool.
Yeah.
So, what song from another band or artist do you think is sort of pivotal to influencing your sound?
I think for Blush, potentially, I would say Portishead is pretty, as a band, and like sort of their attitudes to making music and like their output. Although maybe there's not complete similarities, it like sonically, I think we all see that band as like very much the band we like, love together, because we've all got such different music tastes.
Yeah, I think they're a band that we all have like our own very like personal relationship with, because like I was saying, we have usually like very different, like music taste listens to very different music, but Portishead kind of seemed to be the kind of like the middle that a lot of our tastes like cross over.
Yeah, we had this really great writing week when we were writing Blush, and we were listening to Third, their third album, in the car on the way back, and I hadn't heard it before, and Josh hadn't heard it before, and Louis was saying, you know, after the writing session, he was like, oh, all of the stuff we were doing, like, really felt similar to this album, or I think we should all listen to this album. And, you know, when you're driving in a car and you've got an album on and you're driving for an hour and a half, and we were all just, like, transfixed by the music and how weird it was and how different each song was. And
because I think as well, because there was only like 3 of us, often we don't have like loads of like different like there isn't like loads of different like layers and stuff all the time, because there is only 3 of us. It's kind of, I think I found similarities with them as well. It's like often just like very simple, very like stripped back and like very like direct and
quite like sequenced. And
yeah, and like seeing another band like do that like way before, it's kind of like you can kind of get a sense of different kind of ideas and things, and different kind of like techniques and approaches that you might implement.
Yeah.
So your new album Blush is coming out, and what sort of sounds can we expect from this album?
Quite varied.
Yeah, it's really fun, I think. We've got some quite like hard industrial moments. We've got
Like
this sort of
untethered in the individual.
Yeah, untethered in the individual, very like industrial, very like beat driven. Then we've got some more like upbeat kind of poppy moments, Comfy Eating and Hero Man. And then in the last few tracks of the album, I think we really got a chance to just like bring in some different like colours on the palette kind of thing. Transit's very rocky and has moments of like, you know, folkiness. 7 is like a duet we did with Tony and Joku, and it was really, it was built from a sort of trip hop demo that we'd made, but
Almost like a lullaby or something.
Yeah, we pulled it out to this kind of like lullaby space, and
Mantra or something.
yeah, and then 7 is
Soap. Do you mean?
Soap, sorry, and then Soap is again sort of it felt like a song that was very different for us to make, but feels very appropriate now. So I think there's lots of different sounds, but hopefully, or we've tried to create one sort of world that they all exist within.
Yeah, I think a lot of our music has been, I mean, we've experimented with so many different like styles and genres. Something we wanted to focus on was trying to make it feel like that it was just like, one voice, and it didn't sound
cohesive.
Sounded cohesive, yeah.
I think it definitely. That's something that I thought. It was a very cohesive sound and a very unique and like interesting sound. One of my favourite tracks is the focus track, Comfort Eating.
Yep.
And there's some really interesting lyrics in the intro. You say we're all born ignorant, but you keep feeding it. Can you tell us the meaning behind this track?
Yeah, Comfort Eating is like literally the image of this person stuck in a room and they have to like almost eat their way through the walls, and when they get to the other side they're in this beautiful like field of their dreams.
They're like stuck in a Kinder egg.
Yeah.
They have to like eat their way out.
Yeah, literally.
fighting the toy.
Yeah, like
Yeah. And I think the song is meant to be like an ode to, you know, letting go and like escaping yourself as well, escaping sort of, I guess the Kinder egg of your making.
yeah.
But yeah, it's like a very emotional song, but it was quite fun to experiment with making quite like a dark subject matter, quite playful in the imagery and also in the instrumental.
Would you say it's like one of your favourite tracks to make off the album? And if not, which one?
I think my favourite track is Soap, just for its just the way in which it sort of like when we started writing it and how it sounds on the album, and we got like this lovely string section at the end.
The Prague String Orchestra.
Yeah, the Prague String Orchestra. So that was really nice to have. What's your favourite moment?
Mine's Transit. but just mainly just like that last 3 run is kind of like my favourite. I think all the other songs, like really happy with how they came out, but maybe slightly more like expected of how they might come out with like the last 3 tracks. Just like going through the process of like initially starting to make them and then seeing them like develop and like change so much over the course of like a year or 6 months. And that's what I find kind of most exciting about making music with these guys is just, sometimes, we'll like make something and then you kind of takes on a life of its own, and it kind of can become something that we never really like expected that we would make, or be like, I never thought that this was like a kind of sound that we would like explore, but then it like makes sense and it feels like so interesting when you're at the end of it and you're like, wow, like so it just kind of like happened. You didn't really like expect to see all these different sounds and colours and stuff to come out. So
I find great comfort looking at the sky, knowing it's the same sky you see. It's the closest thing to being in your eyes and in your body. And I can talk about the stars, but so many hundreds have done before. I want to talk about your feet and your neck and your earlobes. I wash my hands until they're no longer hands, they're just water and soap. I wash my hands until they're no longer hands, they're just water and soap. I wash my hands until they're no longer hands, they're just water and soap. I'll tie the knot if you bring the rope. I find great comfort looking at the sky, knowing it's the same sky you see. It's the closest thing to being in your eyes and in your body. And I can talk about the stars, but so many hundreds have gone before. I want to talk about your feet and your neck and your earlobes. I find great comfort looking at the sky, knowing it's the same sky you see. It's the closest thing to being in your eyes and in your body. And I can talk about the stars, but so many hundreds have done before. I want to talk about your feet and your neck and your earlobes.
Do you guys sort of have a set process when you're in the studio creating music?
Question. I think it changes quite a lot, but we normally start with 1 or 2 elements, like potentially harmonic and rhythmic. So we'll either have a bass line or like a drum machine sequence and like maybe like a top line or like a vocal hook or something, and then we'll jam that out. And for a lot of the tracks, that's kind of how they've come about. But also some of them have been built in the studio, built through like production. Some of them were demos that we brought forward and like updated as a full band. I think it's all quite different, but I think that was just the nature of the debut. There were like lots of different things we wanted to include on it, so we were writing in different ways for different tracks. But I think in the future, I think we want to focus on writing in a room together and just like songs coming from like jamming as a three as much as possible, because I think that's where we get like a lot of the energy on the tracks from, and it's really fun when tracks are built from that place.
So you guys were nominated for Best Live Act at the AIM Awards.
Yeah.
For someone coming to watch you at your live shows for the first time, what can they expect? Because that's quite the title. Best Live Act.
Yeah. I think we try and bring a lot of energy.
Yeah.
We want to make it immersive. We want to make it fun, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I think the sort of, it's like fun to dance and kind of lose yourself in it, but also, yeah, I think
Hopefully an experience, like a sonic experience as well.
Yeah, and I think also, like, for all of us, we find a lot of like release in playing songs and you know, and like performing the songs, and like just feel like, you know, if you're on a good stage and you're feeling like the subs and you can feel everything, it does really feel fun to perform like a lot of the tracks. And then you look out and you see everyone and you sort of connect with the audience. So yeah, I think we just like those moments of like connection and euphoria.
I would love to see that, because you guys are very chill, like just chilling, smiling, having a good time. So I can't imagine you just like, you know, ripping up the stage. But I think I have seen it before in a lot of musicians. You know, they're a bit subdued, you know, quietly, yeah, and then they just get on the stage and it's just this. They just turn into this other person, this other being, and just absolutely shell it.
Yeah.
So
it's a fun feeling sometimes when you're having a chat with someone and then they're like, "What do you play?" and you're just like on stage like, screaming, and you're like, and then you come off and they're like, what?
Yeah, because I guess you like grow comfortable to like being on stage, which is weird because it's like loads of people like watching you, but
it's like a visual representation of a human being, you know, very multifaceted. You don't always see the sides, but we see this and hear this subdued, chill side of you guys, and then we'll go to your shows and be like, wow, this is so crazy.
Where did this come from?
So tell me about a song by an artist you are loving at the moment.
I'm really loving the new Sorry album. They just released, I think, on Domino, their second album, and like all the songs on it are so good, but there's this song called Screaming in the Rain. It's amazing. I've just been listening to it on like long walks recently, just being like, I'm screaming in the rain, and it's been like lovely and sunny autumnal days.
Yes, my favourite autumn days. Honestly, my favourite. I'm glad autumn is here.
It's a really great album though, and I mean I've known them as a band personally for a few years now, but even before like I got to know them, you know, used to listen to some of their self-release stuff, and it's crazy to see how much they've carried their personality through like all of their released music, and like their sort of like very DIY techniques, and like sort of like made it quite hi-fi. I think it sounds really sick.
So this is a bit of not an unusual question, but it's, if you weren't doing music, what career path do you reckon you'd be on? Like a sort of a sliding doors moment, you know? If you turn the other way, if you'd given up, you know, when you thought, oh, I'm not sure about this. You're like, I don't know. I
mean, I'm training currently to be a therapist on the side, but it's going to take like 6-7 years to do that.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's probably a few things. Like, I'm a sound engineer as well, so I'd probably do that.
Yeah.
But then that is music, so it's not really the question.
I was thinking if you guys had any like hobbies, unusual hobbies that you're like, yeah, I'd be like, for this one time I applied to be the person who writes the fortune inside the fortune cookie. I saw like a job advert for that.
Yeah, you know, there's just one, like most of the fortune cookies in the world are written by one guy.
What? No,
What?
that can't be
Yeah,
true.
in New York. I promise you. And then he.
What is
he
this
like-
advert? Was
and
it
then-
fake?
No, as in, I think there are
Well,
other
he just
people,
like
but
bulk
like.
sells them to everyone else.
Well, no,
like-
he writes all the fortunes and like it gets mass produced. But then he had to retire and then he had to teach someone how to write the fortunes. And so there's been a
One
drastic
guy.
drop in the quality of fortunes because this man retired from the game. I honestly.
No, I believe you. I just think that's so funny.
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't know
big
that.
Drop in the quality of fortune.
And he just like lived in. I think he lived in New York or something.
Well, then they should have hired me. So
Yeah.
tough on them.
Yeah.
I literally quoted like, I think this was literally
Did
like
you apply
4
for the
years
job?
ago. Yeah, I did. This was literally like 4 years ago, and I like quoted like an Albus Dumbledore quote,
Wow.
and I was like something deep, like meaningful. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Dumbledore once said this, and everyone would be just like, "What the hell is this mess?"
Just been reading too much Harry Potter then.
Well, apart from a busy summer, what are on the cards for PVA? What can we expect to see in the near future aside from your album?
We're going on tour
Tour.
on the 20th of October. We've got a few installs before that this weekend. But also, yeah, I think we're just going to quite enjoy like writing. It's been this year's been very focused on getting the album out and making the album and like getting the songs together and playing. So quite looking forward to when we're back from tour, just like getting back in the studio and like doing some experimentation.
Some winter writing sessions.
Some writing sessions in our cozy dens.
I love that. Well, there you have it. Make sure you go and stream Blush. And thank you so much for joining me here today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank
You
you
guys are
so
so
much.
cool.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Can't eat, can't sleep, can't go to work, I can't leave, can't eat, can't sleep. No man-made machine or earthly being, no goddess in between. The sky, it's orange roads, hard